started with this talk called as DevOps. I generally call it as Decoding Devops, and this is more or less like an introduction to what is this DevOps all about. And you might have, since you've come here to hear about DevOps, I would assume that you might have read something about DevOps or something might have gotten you interested, right? And I'm going to get started with the introduction. And it's becoming a really popular keyword rather in today's technology industry, DevOps transformation, DevOps in general. And along with that, there's a lot of chaos that you might hear if you go to internet and search for what is DevOps. You might hear a lot of different interpretations, a lot of different thoughts, and you might see somebody talking about some tool, somebody talking about technology. Let's say I do CI/CD, that's my DevOps. If I use cloud, that's DevOps is all about. If I use Chef, that's DevOps for me, right? Now there is a reason for that chaos, and we are here to understand what is all about from grounds up and get to know how do you get started with your own DevOps journey and get a sort of a common understanding of DevOps in general, what it is all about, right? And to get that conversation started, I'm going to begin with certain questions to you. You don't have to answer all of those, but that will at least get you started thinking on those lines on what is DevOps and why it is the way it is right now, why there is so much of chaos there, and that's what we're going to get started with. So does anyone know a standard definition of DevOps? Anyone here?
So there should not be a distinction between the development team and the operations team. So they're going to merge the two operations into a single.
Okay, so you think that it's going to be one team which does the development, operations, everything, is that right? And does that mean that each one, let's say if you're a developer, you'll do the operations job, and if you're an operations guy, will you do the development as well? So when you say merge, what does that really mean?
It's a merge 360.
360, you do everything? Well, that's, according to me, that's not really true, because if I come from the ops world, right, and I have spent my more than 10, 11 years learning about and specializing in certain type of skills. That is building infrastructure, managing those, scaling those, as well as making sure the lights keep on running, right? That's my area of expertise. If you want me to code, or if you make me code, I'll probably fail, right? Because I don't come with that experience. That's one. Second is I'm not even interested in writing code, and that does not sort of get me there, right? And then if you make everyone do everything, that probably will not work, because developers, if you're a developer, you might have experience in your own profession, you might have been doing that for a while, and certainly if everyone tries to do everything, then nobody gains expertise in anything. That's one. So it's not true that you're merging the team. It is definitely true that there is something where you need to bring developers and operations together and do something. There has to be an integration, yes, but that integration will mean a cross-functional team. Not, it's not going to be everyone doing everything, but everyone with their own expertise, but they work together to achieve the common goal, and that common goal is what we're going to look at in a bit. And there is a reason why there is no standard definition of DevOps. We're going to talk about it. Does anyone know who created DevOps? Is there a company, is there a standard, is there an organization, is there a body which says that this is what DevOps is, or we created DevOps, or this is our standard, this is our whatever, right? So again, there is a reason for that. So who created it? I'm going to start asking these questions and then start answering them as throughout the presentation as we go along. But that's something which I believe we need to start asking questions. Why it is the way it is right now? Who created it? Why it is so chaotic? Why there are so many different interpretations? Why is it called as DevOps, right? So is it only about developers and operations? What about the QA? What about the business? What about the marketing team? What about the other teams who are involved in building your product as well, right? It has to be relevant for everyone if it is going to be a common standard. Now, this is something I hope a lot of you might be able to answer. So what are the tools that come to your mind when you say DevOps?
CI/CD.
CI/CD?
When
Okay.
we talk about DevOps, I just want to add on to what Dinepa mentioned.
All right.
Developing an application looking at operational scale in mind. You think of, so in traditional world, developer was focused on the functionality only.
That's right.
Now we are looking at scale.
We're talking about the non-functional requirements, NFRs, right? Exactly.
And taken care in most of the time, it should be taken care in your development cycle itself, so that operational burden reduces.
Absolutely. So, I mean, that's going to help you ultimately achieve agility and the velocity that you desire to be, and that's the reason why developers need to understand what the operational perspective is. They need to start thinking about the non-functional requirement absolutely right when you're coding, and you start following certain practices and methodologies. One of that is continuous integration, CI/CD. Continuous integration and delivery and deployment. We're going to talk about that, but that's not all DevOps is all about. There are a lot of other aspects to it as well. So can anyone else name a few other tools? Chef. There's Jenkins, there's Chef.
Repositories like Git, whatever.
Git, that's a source code management system, that's right.
So all integrating all this together.
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, when you start talking about DevOps or start looking for DevOps, right, you'll find there are like so many different tools. It's just overwhelming. The first time I started, thinking about DevOps from that point of view, I was just overwhelmed with the amount of tools, amount of technologies, and so many different things that people were talking about, right? I have a list of tools actually, which I call it. I started with the essential DevOps tools list, but it's no more essentials because it's more than hundreds now. It's about 100, 150, right? So it's no more essential. And there are a lot of tools, yes, but then you'll have to start thinking about DevOps from your perspective, your context, and then DevOps is sort of a context-based approach, I would say. And even though there is an overwhelming set of tools, you don't have to worry about that because not everything is going to be relevant to you. And how do you find out what is relevant to me and what should I be looking at from the DevOps perspective? We're going to talk about that as well once we start with the introduction in mind, right? Now, this is an interesting question. So, you might have heard of agile methodologies. There are different models of software development. There was a waterfall model, and then we started talking about agile, which got really popular, and then came DevOps. So, does DevOps replace agile and waterfall? What do you think? What are your thoughts on it? No? So, what do you think DevOps, where does it fit in? Does it go along with either of those?
Towards agile.
Towards agile, yes.
So it's a cultural change rather than methodological change.
Yes, that is true. I mean, that's partially true. It's also about cultural change, but it's not only about cultural change. It is also about tools, but it's not only about tools. So that's why I'm saying, so there are a lot of different perspectives. Somebody says that, okay, it's only about tools. Somebody would say it's only about culture, it's mindset, but that's where even Agile started, right? Agile started with the prescriptive methodology saying that you need to do this, and these are our objectives, and that's how Agile started, right? And DevOps is pretty close to Agile, or rather I would say it's an extension of Agile. Because what happens with Agile is you start thinking about, it's all started with Agile and lean manufacturing, and in fact, it started in 1980s with the manufacturing revolution, and when Toyota came in with Toyota Production System, and they came with this lean manufacturing methodologies in the manufacturing industry, and that's what IT started adopting. And people started talking about the lean software development, lean methodologies, as well as we started talking about Agile. But if you really look at Agile and lean, it is more focused on the development side of things, the development perspective, right? They didn't consider. So you're talking about lean software development. You're talking about reducing the work in progress, reducing the batch size, and then you're doing continuous integration, writing code in iterations every 2 weeks. You want to you have a new feature ready. That's right. But what happens after that? There is a barrier. There's this unknown world of sort of production and deployment, and that's where the operations comes in. And operations doesn't know what's going on. I was an ops guy, and I was hearing about Scrum and the backlogs and this and that, but I didn't know what was going on, and until I got something to be released, right? And then if I have if you're developing a product or feature every 2 weeks, you want that to be out there, going to the customers every 2 weeks as well, right? But if you have an operations roadblock, and if you are doing monthly releases, or if you're doing releases every 2 months, that's not going to happen, right? And that's where people started talking about how do you break this barrier between the development organization. And when we talked about Agile also sort of encompasses the quality assurance practices too. So you start talking about extreme programming, you start talking about test-driven development, you start writing tests and then code, BDD, TDD, all of that is taken care of, yes. But the operation side of things is not, it does not talk about it, or it does not involve operations, and that's when the barriers started coming in, right? So this invisible wall between the developers and operations, and that's what we are trying to, or attempting to break with DevOps. And that's when all these methodologies and automation and the cultural changes also come in, right? Now, to understand DevOps, we're going to start from ground up. So we're going to start with a story narrated by Damon Edwards on how it all started, where it all started, who created it, and how it all came into what.